This is Do It For A Living, your source for inside information on the future of automotive performance.
We're not salesmen. We never have been. We're techs, right? So the way I figured it, if we did the support and training system right, our customers would be our sales department. So we just didn't worry about that.
What's holding you back from starting or growing your business into what it can be? Well, if you're listening to this, it's not a lack of information. What you're about to hear is all you need to get motivated and start making waves. Do It For A Living podcast details the journey of today's true players in their own words. Find out how they broke out so you can too. The time is now. The time is always now. So I've got Tom Roberts here. He's the owner of Autonerdz. Autonerdz is the only Picoscope automotive specialists in the world. And I personally have experience with these guys, and these guys are kick-ass. So, Tom, how's it going?
Hey, it's going good. How have you been?
I'm living the dream, baby.
All right.
So, Tom, tell us a little bit about Autonerdz and who you are and who your business is and what you guys do.
Well, we are, as you mentioned, we're the only Picoscope automotive specialists, for sure on the continent, probably in the world, simply because it's all we do. We specialize just in that. It's the only thing we sell. It's the only thing we have to support and deal with. And so, there's other places you can pick up the hardware, but there's nobody else out there that can put the kind of effort into it that we do for after-sales support and training, because they just flat don't have the time to do it. It's not that we're smarter than the other guys or anything. It's just that we put more effort into it because we can, and that's what we chose to do. And it's worked. And, it's kind of, might be kind of counterintuitive for some, put all your eggs in one basket like that. But that's what I decided to do, and it's been working well since the turn of the century. So I guess I can't complain too much.
The plan for Do It For A Living is to provide resources for people in the automotive performance industry specifically. Autonerdz is a killer resource because of the after-sales support that you guys offer surrounding this Picoscope oscilloscope. Tell us about that after-sales support. Like, what does the whole business look like? It's way more than just selling Picoscope hardware. Tell us what the rest of the business is all about so that people can benefit from it.
I've been a journeyman since 1980, and I've certainly had my fair share of equipment support experiences, since that time, and even before that. And as it turned out, I ended up finding myself on the vendor side selling equipment to automotive technicians, and I wanted to do something that really had never been done before and create a level of support. So the question became, okay, how do you invest in your business? Do you invest in advertising, ads in national magazines, whatever you might want to do? All this stuff costs money, and what's your return on that investment? I tried it a couple times, didn't get much return on the investment. I said, okay, heck with that. What we're going to do is we're going to invest all of our resources into our customers, period, and we're going to create a support system that they can utilize to reach whatever level of expertise they want to with this equipment. All they have to do is invest in themselves the time to study and practice. So that's the whole big picture. Now, specifically, we have a lot of training movies that we produce here in-house that our customers have access to. We have special areas of our forums and we do have the largest Picoscope automotive users group in the world, and these guys are experts. You can find experts in whatever, tuners, diesel guys, Maserati guys, whatever you want to find, they're on there. And then we also have, personal assistance. When somebody calls us up on the phone, we can get into their PC screen with them and help them with a setup or something. And of course, we always tell people that, hey, we're not here to diagnose the car for you. We can't hear it. We can't smell it. We can't taste it. All we can do is see what you're doing But in many cases, we accidentally do help them fix the car simply because we say, hey, why don't you do this, or maybe that might indicate this, and so that's a good resource too. Plus, we can help them get set up and get the capture they want.
So on the forums, for example, if you have a waveform and you need help interpreting it, you can post it on this forum once you're a customer and get the expert advice of yourself and also the thousands of customers that are on the forums participating.
Exactly. You can put up your data file, which is, of course, the most effective thing to do because somebody can download your data file and pick it apart and zoom in and examine it just the way they would if it was their own. And then, of course, you can also put up, some images, with circles and arrows and a paragraph on the back of each one explaining what each one was, and this is my concern, what is this big arrow, and then they can download the data file, have a closer look at it, and provide, their thoughts on it and what they think might be going on, or give you some suggestions for, your setup or your strategy or, what to go after next.
Right. So what I really want to get across to people, and this is a little bit out of line with how we normally do interviews, but it's such a valuable resource that I want people to understand. If you have a waveform, you can post it here on this forum, and these guys will pick it apart and help you decipher what it means. And the level of expertise on the back end is these are all people that are using it pretty frequently. So it's a resource unlike I've been able to find anywhere else. So it's pretty cool. And I just really want to convey that to everybody that's listening is it's a really good resource. And without trying to plug you guys too much, it's just useful for the end user. And I wanted to talk to you, Tom, about how that investment in being a real resource worked as opposed to advertising. And I think that's what you were getting to earlier, right? That the ROI on advertising wasn't doing shit. And the ROI on investing in your customer and really trying to solve a problem for them was working for your business. Did I understand that right?
Yeah, you did. Absolutely. That's, see, back in the, 15 years ago, the idea of a PC on an automotive shop was laughable. It just wasn't done, right? There was no reason for that, and it was ridiculous, and most people would laugh at it. Nowadays, you don't have a modern automotive shop without PCs in the shop and access to online databases, forums, factory websites, factory scan tools, flashing, all that stuff. So it's all involved in PCs now, and we saw that coming. Pico Technologies in the UK saw that coming. They were forward-thinking enough to see what was going on there. So it started with the novel idea that we would still talk to our customers after we had their money. So,
right.
And we do it in many different ways, and we placed all of our resources into creating support and training system that continues to grow and evolve. With no resources left for the costly advertising and other promotional activities, there simply was no sales department. We're not salesmen. We never have been. We're techs, right? So the way I figured it, if we did the support and training system right, our customers would be our sales department. So we just didn't worry about that. After, this was in the beginning, and it was a big risk because, this is not something that had been done before. But afterwards, I always wondered, why other industries, other industries and other equipment vendors and stuff aren't doing it this way. But, after all, it was an awesome product, and with the proper nurturing, it would sell itself. And so obviously that's pretty risky. But I wondered if there was, some good reason other companies were not doing that way. But it was the way I wanted to do it, and it was my call. So there was only one way to find out, and as it turned out, it turned out to be a pretty good idea because our customers are our investment portfolio. They do our advertising for us. They tell other technicians, hey, dude, you got to check this out. You know, they post on other forums. They interact when they go to trade shows and whatever else, you know, and the word gets out there far and wide. You know, we've got guys in New Zealand and Australia and the Far East and everywhere, you know, that have just heard about us online, you know, from our customers.
For sure. What's so funny is in the first handful of interviews on Do It for a Living, when I would ask what their favorite tool was, Picoscope came up a few times. Like multiple times. So it's exactly what you're explaining, where the customers are the ones doing your advertising for you.
Yep.
The question that I've got for you is, when you're first getting started, before you have a handful of customers, how do you get the word out in the first place?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, you know, we'd already had an established website. You know, it wasn't like we started doing Picoscope. That's not how this all started. Picoscope kind of happened to us later and took over the business. That's not what Autonerdz originally was. Originally, we were a lab scope training company that I had established. It was just me, you know, and I was a national trainer. I flew all over the country to trade shows and did what was known as the Nerd Series training program to help people, you know, get into lab scopes, figure out what they could do with them, develop techniques and strategies that worked, and that sort of thing. So that's what it was to start with. And when I first started the business, I realized that, okay, here I am, you know, stepping out on my own, walking away from a job at the top of my game with good hourly pay, benefits, 401k, walking out the door, right? Is that nuts or what? Okay, so, but, you know, that decision, I was really conflicted about that at first, you know, doing that. There's a little backstory that goes with that, and that is, you know, I had a little experience doing it, found out I really liked it because the Automotive Service Association, when I was working at the shop, asked me to do some classes for their group. And, oh, man, I didn't realize, you know, they talk about, you know, those that can't do teach. Oh, no, you never know. You know, you can do it. You know how to do it. But when you try to explain that to somebody else, then you really realize how much you don't know, you know, in the details, you know, to be able to explain that to them. Sure, you can go lay your hands on it and say a prayer or whatever, make it happen, you know, but try to explain that to somebody else, you know, that's a challenge. But so I really enjoyed it, and then they wanted to start, you know, they wanted me to start doing this for more groups in other areas. Well, at some point, you know, I can't do both. I got to walk out of here if I want to do this. And so I thought of it this way. Okay, so what's it going to be like when you're looking back on your life and the things you've done with it? You know, when you're nearing the end of times, right, for yourself, and you're looking back. And I thought, okay, there's two ways I could look at this. I could look back on my life and wonder, what would have happened if, right? Or I could look back and say, damn, that was sure stupid, but at least I had the balls to do it. And I went, oh, okay, option two, definitely option two. And I never looked back after that, you know, even though I realized, okay, the life of a trainer can be short-lived. I figured I probably had about 5 years before I burned out, you know, or got stale. But there I was. And the advantage of being out there, once you've taken that step, is you are available for opportunities. When you're working full-time and an opportunity comes your way, it may not come your way, and even if it does, you won't necessarily realize, you know, what it is and how to take advantage of it. But when you're out there, you have the time to analyze that opportunity and say, hey, you know, this looks good, you know, and you can invest that time and do that. And that's kind of what happened, you know, to us, because I was a national trainer, flying all over the country, doing these classes. I wasn't selling equipment at all. That wasn't my thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But one day I got an email from a guy named Alan Tong from Pico Technology, and we had a page on our website where we had lab scope specs, so you could compare lab scope specs and kind of understand, what was different about each unit, Mm-hmm. And he said, would you mind putting the specs for this scope up on your website? And I said, oh, sure, no problem. I start reading them. I'm going, oh, damn. Wow, what is this, And so I say, send me one of these. I want to look at this, And I got a hold of it, and it turned out to be a Lab Scopes jockey's wet dream. And I went, okay. And then he shares with me, we're thinking about, offering these to the automotive industry. I said, yes, yes. I went in on the ground floor right now. Let's do this. And we started the whole thing, right, from the very beginning. I don't know how many guys on this group might be members of the International Automotive Technicians Network, but, I've been a member of that like forever, back before they even had forums. And the very first Picoscope image ever seen on IATN is mine. We started the whole thing. And
you've been in it for a long time.
Yep. And that's kind of how it happened to us, and then we got a hold of that, and then we had to start thinking about marketing, and that's where things got a little sketchy. But like I said, I had another thing going. I was making money as a trainer, so it wasn't like it was kind of a side deal, Yeah, we'll sell this equipment, we'll show it to people, and we'll present it in class. And then I started, of course, this started getting integrated into the classes, captures that this thing was doing, and that's kind of how it started. And our stock, our original stock was maybe 5 units. That's all we had at any one time. Now we've got $100,000 worth of stuff at any one time. It's crazy. But yeah, and then it just took over the business.
So you quit a full-time job, but you did slowly transition out and start to make use of this opportunity that you saw, and then there was a tipping point where you said, this opportunity exceeds the one that I currently have. Is that accurate?
Well, I didn't actually transition out of the job, I was doing some stuff.
Were you doing? I'm sorry. Were you doing Picoscope or selling those units while you were still a trainer?
Yes. Later on, this is after I left the job. After Autonerdz was a national training company, right?
Okay.
So this is what I was saying before when I said once you're out there, the opportunity comes. That's when you can take advantage of it. Had this happened to me when I was working full time, I probably wouldn't have paid that much attention to it, or even occurred to me that, hey, I could like sell these. We could like introduce these to the automotive industry. I wouldn't have time to do that,
Right.
It would have been nuts. So you can't, at some point you have to decide, which thing are you going to do? And of course, my boss didn't particularly like the idea of me being a part-timer. So there was no transitioning going on. A decision had to be made, so. So
you made it.
Yeah.
And no regrets.
No regrets. No, none at all. I'm ruined, though. I mean,
you can never go back to having a job again?
No. So I think, if you're considering this, people that are considering, take that into consideration here, because you may become unemployable as a result of this, regardless of how it turns out, right?
I can resonate with that. I'm absolutely unemployable.
But you never know what's going to happen. We wake up in the morning, and there's never a dull moment. It's always interesting, because you never know what's going to happen. And yeah, sure, I had thoughts about there was times when I was fretting about things, and what if this doesn't work, because that's a possibility with anything like this, but I used to fret about it, but You just got to get used to the ups and downs. What you have to do is look ahead to see what's coming that others might not. You know, like I said, 15 years ago, the idea of a computer or PC-based lab scope was just unheard of and unthinkable. But you know, when you see the train coming, keep your ears to the track and listen, because you can see that train come, you can hear that train coming long before you can see it. And
right.
You know, I'm not a big risk taker by nature. I'm really not. I like sure things. I am not a gambler. A lot of guys out there that get into business for themselves, they're gamblers. You know, they don't mind putting that kind of stuff at risk. I really was conflicted about it. It was difficult for me because I'm not by nature that way. But when you see a sure thing, oh, dude, you got to do it. You know, I mean, it's just when you know when you're confident in the product and you know it's going to work, you know, then you got to do it. You got to grab that opportunity.
Truer words have never been spoken, my friend. I guess it's the confidence for a lot of people that what they're looking at is a real opportunity and that it is going to work. Because there's that devil on your shoulder that is constantly telling you, well, what if it doesn't work?
Oh, yeah. That's what I was saying, you know, when I was saying, look, you know, I mean, okay, if it was really stupid, at least I had the balls to do it, and I can respect myself for that. You know, even if it crashed and burned, you know, I can say, at least I had the balls to do it. So I didn't want to be in that position wondering what would have happened if. I just couldn't live with that, you know. And that, once I crossed, that was a real tipping point for me right there. Once I crossed into that other concept, then there was no looking back. I didn't want to look back. It was full speed ahead, you know. Damn the torpedoes. And that also frees you, know, because that when you have that doubt and that conflict going on and that devil on your shoulder, as you say, you know, saying, hey, what if this doesn't work? That holds you back. That prevents you from doing what you need to do to make things work. You cannot be doing that. You know, you just can't and be successful. So you have to let that go at some point.
One thing I want to touch on here is you said full speed ahead, and I think that that's important that people understand, because a lot of times people will start a new project without fully letting go of a previous project. So they're, you know, putting their toes in this new thing and they're not taking their feet out of the water over here. So they never fully invest themselves and give that new opportunity the amount of work that it needs to work, to take off. Because if you, for example, keep dabbling in what you were previously doing and you don't go full speed ahead in your new project, it's more likely that the new project's going to fail.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. Yeah, you've got to jump in with both feet. You have to fully commit. You have to fully commit.
So you've had a lot of good success with Autonerdz and with this transition from being an hourly paid employee with benefits and now being an entrepreneur. But I'd like for you to explain a bad experience and, more importantly, the worst experience that you've had since you've been in business and what you did to overcome that. Do you have a particular experience that was tough?
Well, other than my self-doubt and my worry, you know, that's probably the worst impediment that I had in the beginning to success, because I found it, like I was saying, holding me back, you know. But like I said, I'm not a gambler. I'm not by nature the kind of person that, you know, takes all their money and dumps it into something. You know, that's tough for me. And I was very cautious about the way I did it in the beginning. You know, I've always been in the black. I've never gone in the red to do this. We've always been in the black from day one. That's because I'm a very cautious business person. I'm not a high-risk taker. But, you know, you still have to commit. You still have to commit, even though you can do it cautiously. if you're not a big gambler. You still can do it, but you do have to commit to it. And the reason is, what I was saying earlier, you've got to be out there and available for opportunities. You've got to make yourself available, and you've got to see these opportunities and grab them when they come by. That's the main thing I can say. And I guess probably some of the most difficult situations I personally have had with the business is when you do have a large group of people, a certain number of them are nuts, right?
Uh-huh.
And interacting with people have attitudes and things that you don't understand and you can't relate to are difficult, but we manage it. We try to keep everybody happy. It's impossible to keep everyone happy, and I realize that, but we do what we can do.
Yeah.
We expect our customers, we support our customers with everything we've got, and we expect them to support us. It's not like, the customer is always right, although, that's the adage, right? The customer is not always right. And sometimes you have to deal with that kind of a situation. For example, we've had guys that have learned how to use lab scopes with us, and then gone out to work for a competitor, selling Picoscopes or whatever in competition with us, or working for somebody that does, or start buying their equipment somewhere else. We can't support them, and we don't, and that makes some people upset. It does, because and it's understandable, but we don't offer our resources to those who don't, in turn, support us. And it's not that much to ask, really, I don't think.
Right. But being able to draw that line is tough to do. Draw that line in the sand is hard.
It is hard. It is hard. And, people say, well, hey, I heard you got lifetime support, and training and all this stuff. And I said, well, no one's ever called it lifetime. We don't call it lifetime. It auto-renews every year. You never have to pay for any of these resources, but there are ways you can lose that. You can go to work for one of our competitors. You can start buying your equipment somewhere else, and then you expect us to support you in your decision with this new scope product or whatever you purchase somewhere else. No, sorry, it doesn't work that way.
Right.
Yeah. So that's tough, but that's the way we do it, and the people that understand it really benefit from it, because they do have continuous access to all of the resources on a 24/7 basis. And the thing about our forums is, they're so active that business never stops. It's 24/7 because there's always somebody awake somewhere, and that's really challenging, as a business owner too. We try to be really strict about, when we answer the phone and stuff. We've got definite hours for that, and we stick to them. And you got to do that. You can't let your business run your life. You got to have some time to enjoy the spoils of war.
So that's a thing that I struggle with. I think a lot of people struggle with is, what if I'm not available 24/7? Is my business going to not succeed to the level that it otherwise could? And you found great success with saying, these are my strict business hours. We're going to support the customers, and we're going to ask them to support us. We're not just going to provide and waste every resource that we have until we burn out.
Exactly. And the other thing is, I feel an obligation to our group of people that we support that have provided. You got to remember, they provide the resources. None of these support resources are free, by the way. Some of them are very expensive. It's like advertising, only bigger, right? So, but they don't have to pay for them because they provided the resources by purchasing their equipment from us and their repeat business and their referrals and everything else we talked about, they provide those resources that make all of that support stuff available to them. And it isn't fair to give it away to somebody who is not doing that. That's not fair to them either. So that's why we don't do it that way. That's another reason we don't do it that way. Besides, there's all this competition over price and all this other stuff out there. And you have to realize that, okay, sure, you might be able to find something cheaper, probably not. Certainly not you certainly can't find a better value. But, some people, they got what I call the Amazon mentality. Say, I want that thing. And so they get on and find the cheapest price, and they go, click, done, right? That's the Amazon mentality, and that will get you in trouble with something like this because you definitely want the whole experience that goes with it. And so that's our goal, and that's what we've always tried to do, is not just provide the equipment, but provide the whole experience. Our guys tell us, it's a training and support package that happens to include a Picoscope, So that's kind of that's all we do. So, and if we were to start taking in riders that purchase their equipment somewhere else that don't provide for these resources, you can see where that's going to go. You're going to go down the tubes. There's no way you can do that. Somebody has to provide the money to invest in these resources. Somebody has to do it.
It's the difference between value and price.
Exactly. Some people get that. Some people don't.
Yeah. But the people that don't, they're not the right customer for you anyways.
Right. Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
So you just have to be at peace with not having everyone in the world be your customer.
Exactly. And we're okay with that, There's a certain cult mentality, I suppose. I know there's a lot of people that make fun of that, and don't drink the Autonerdz Kool-Aid. And we love that because it's funny, and we actually made our business motto based on that. We say, look, we provide, the LSD experience, right?
Tell me.
Lab scope diagnostics, right? You got to remember, I was a teenager in the '60s, and with all the Timothy Leary and all that, and the electric acid Kool-Aid test and all that stuff, and always wanted to be a leader of a worldwide LSD cult. Well, now I am.
Dream accomplished.
Dream accomplished, absolutely. And so, if you go to our main webpage, and you see the main page there, our entry page. Our mission statement is to enlighten automotive diagnosticians through the use of LSD.
Tom, tell us something that you're doing right now that has you fired up.
Well, recently Pico released a brand new scope, a groundbreaking model of 4-channel automotive scope, and it just came out at the end of last year. We're very excited about that, and it's been quite an experience playing around with it and also getting to know it and looking at some of the things that we can do with it that we haven't been able to do with scopes in the past. So that's all very exciting, and they come out with a new product. They're always coming out with new products, new software, and the software updates are free, right? We have our own version of a software installer that is for our customers. It's the same software, but it comes bundled in our installer, which helps tweak it for better performance, installs some specialized probes and stuff that you're going to need, and generally sets it up so that it's user-friendly out of the box, right?
Right.
For your intended purpose. But, but the software updates are free. In the previous model scope, just for example of what some of these software updates do, it's not just, new features and things like that, like, for example, frequency graphing, duty cycle graphing, things like this that customers ask for. They get a lot of their ideas from our group. And those were a couple of the things that we've always wanted, and they finally did those things. But the previous model scope, they came out with a software update that increased the power of that scope by a factor of 10. So you've got this piece of hardware that you bought, and you get a free software upgrade, and it becomes 10 times more powerful. When does that happen,
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be a bit surprised if they come out with something like this for this new one, too, because it's still, the software is still growing into the scope. It's still extraordinarily functional, of course, and way more powerful than the previous models. But, again, groundbreaking design. They've come out with what they call floating inputs, which allows you to have a difference of 30 volts between your channel grounds, which opens up some other possibilities for how you might hook up that you didn't have before with the common ground scopes. And most automotive scopes have the grounds, attached and common inside the scope. So, when you're hooking up, you do have to realize if those channel grounds are common and you start putting them in different places around the car, you're going to cross up your signals and short things out, which happens when people don't think that through, how they're doing that. Create what we call a ground loop. But this new model doesn't have that issue anymore. You could actually put a channel right across a throttle body motor and watch the voltage change polarity while watching current and TPSs and APPs or whatever else you wanted to do with that. But that's getting into the technical stuff. That's not a big picture. But that's so that's really exciting. We're excited about the new product and everything that goes with it. And our customers are enjoying them quite a bit. And they're tougher. They're the toughest ones we've seen yet. When we had our prototype that we got pre-release, we took it out in the shop and we did some really bad things and tried to destroy it. And we did things we figured somebody might actually do, right? And we were unable to destroy it. And we're going, oh, man, they did a really good job this time, Things that would have destroyed previous model scopes, this one survived. So pretty impressive.
So you touched on big picture stuff. What is your big picture? What's your big, hairy, audacious goal?
Well, that's a very good question. I'm not sure if I'd really have a good answer to that. We just enjoy so much what we're doing. Just meeting the daily challenges, and fine-tuning what we're doing now and making it better.
So moving forward, you're going to keep doing the same thing that you're doing now and just keep helping customers out. What I mean is, what does Autonerdz look like, in 5 and 10 years? Are you still at the helm doing what you do?
Well, Autonerdz is going to still be here, whether I will be or not. I'm getting in my 60s now, but it'll be in good hands if I'm not. You just can't. You can't plan on anything. You never know when things are going to come to an end. They might come to an end suddenly, or they might come to an end gradually. But Autonerdz is something that has got a life of its own at this point, and I'm sure the guys will carry it on long after I'm gone. But that being said, I don't plan on changing anything. If it's not broke, why fix it? The crazy idea of providing unprecedented level of equipment training and support included with the purchase of a piece of equipment, was pretty risky, because that required a lot of investment in resources, and we're still doing that, and we're always coming up with new things we can do. Another thing we do is our group therapy. We do those once a month, and that's an online live session where we screen share, we record them, people can watch them later, people can participate, we have guest presenters. It might be a class, we could have somebody from across the world doing a presentation. We could have, it could be, a question and answer session or a training session. We talk about waveforms, strategies, we look at case studies and all this stuff. That's all something that we do. That's all part of what we've added to this training process. We've got our cloud, that's another really expensive one where everybody can put their huge files. Some Picoscope files are really big. You can put a 20 megabyte file on our forums, but there's no limit to what you can put on the cloud. So you get a really, really large file, or you want to share something else, and we have our reference waveform library, and we have applications written by Rod Marr in Australia that for overlays, compression waveform where you can plot, your valve opening events on your compression waveform. If you've got the cam card specs and that, you can plot that all out. And we got all that stuff, But the big, hairy, audacious goal, I suppose, is just continuing to do that. And I guess what I'm saying is, a lot of businesses are focused on growth, right? Well, growth is overrated. Let me tell you, growth is overrated. Sustainability is the key, and managing the growth carefully. Big growth can kill you because you'll get overextended and you'll tip over and break your nose because you can't sustain it, right? You can't, your growth outpaces your ability to provide what it is that you wanted to provide in the first place. Mm-hmm. And so what I'd want to say is you need a balance and still have time to enjoy the spoils. You want to manage that growth. Yes, we've grown a lot, but it's been manageable growth. And I'm okay with that. I don't have a problem with that at all. And I just want to keep doing what we're doing and try to provide, what we've been doing for our customers. We enjoy it, all of us. We enjoy it so much. It's like, the whole deal about do it for a living, I think, from what I understand, is getting out there and doing what you love and have it provide for you and your family. If you can do that, what else is there, really? I mean, that's the top of the food chain right there.
Yep. As opposed to growth for the sake of growth.
Right. Yes. Yeah, because growth can outpace your ability to manage it.
Cool. That's killer advice.
Very, very quickly. If you don't, you actually sometimes have to rein it back a little bit. You'll say, now, wait a minute here, do we really want to do that? What's going to happen? Sure, okay, yeah, you got the dollar signs in your head and all that, but you have to understand this has got to be controlled. You can't just let it run you. You've got to keep it under control. And like I said before, about how strict we are about answering the phone. As far as emails and stuff like that, we always try to respond to our customers in off hours in some way or another. Somebody emails us, we try to get back to them. If somebody calls us and they leave a message, that's important. We try to return that call as soon as we can, even if it is after hours. If they don't leave a message, we figure, okay, it's not that important, whatever, right? But if they do bother to leave a message, we bother to return the phone call, even if it is after hours. So there's all that, and like I said, you don't want that to take over, There goes a phone, but that's not an important phone.
Okay. Hey, Tom, tell us what's your Achilles heel?
My Achilles heel. That's a good question.
Delegation doesn't sound like that's your Achilles heel, but that's an Achilles heel for a lot of people.
No, I'm very lucky to have found the employees that I have.
Is it luck?
No, not really. I'll tell you a little story about how I ended up with one of them. I'm on the advisory committee for the local college, and they ended up getting one of our packages, Picoscope, and there was one particular instructor there that really took a liking to it, and I worked with him and helped him with it. I went over there a few times, and we did things with it together and things, and this was before I even considered an employee. Hell, you can't have an employee when you don't have a place for him to work. I was doing this out of my bedroom in my house, right? There was no place, right? That didn't come till later. But I remember thinking to myself, note to self, if you ever need an employer, find where this guy is and hire him. And so when that time came, that's exactly what I did. And he's been with us ever since, many years now. And then the other employee we have was a recent graduate of the automotive program there. And he's always reminding me of reasons why I hired him. Very sharp young man. And Andrew is special, and Brian is the other guy that was the instructor. So Brian and Andrew have really contributed to the business a lot.
Nice.
And finding them, and so the way I handle these employees is, being in the industry all my life, I've had all kinds of different bosses, and I've watched how they did things. And I always went, if I was ever a boss, that's not what I would do, right? And so here I am, I'm the boss, right? And I'm going,
now you have to do it.
Yeah, now you have to do it. But what I found is that the best thing you can do is just leave them alone. Just let them do whatever they want. And it's amazing what they'll come up with. You don't tell them what to do. Sure, you've got tasks that need to be done. You say, I think maybe you should handle this or you should handle that. But basically, I'm not a boss that stands over you and tells you what you need to do. I'm a boss that just turns you loose and lets you play. And that's why they stick around, I think. Part of it anyway, but they come up with the most amazing things because you're allowing that creativity to grow. You can't have that creative spark ignite and catch if you're always harassing your employees. It's just not going to work. So I let them do what they need, what they want to do, and let those creative juices, come out, and they come up with stuff that I would have never thought of having them do. I'm not, let them be better than you are, because they can. If you let it happen, they will grow to the point where they, are better at what you do than you do.
Yeah. So you've experienced it for the majority of your career, and then you got an opportunity to practice it, and it's working out the way that you thought it was going to work out. As far as day-to-day management, boss to employee relationship. Well,
it's turned out better than I ever imagined it turning out, actually, in that way. You talk about my Achilles heel. I guess my Achilles heel is when things go wrong, that were not anticipated. I just went through a really rough time this last month. I mean, we're talking about many, many hours of stress because we had some infrastructure failures. Our server went down, oh boy. At the same time, Brian's computer starts acting up. We're going, oh man. And you got all this business to manage all this time, and here's our QuickBooks files on the server, and everything's blowing up in your face, and you just got to grab that bull by the horns and wrestle it down to the ground, regardless of how many hours and stuff you got to put into it. That was rough. I guess that would be my Achilles heels when things go, you get, it's unavoidable. Things go wrong. Things break. Yeah. Everything breaks. Computers break. And just make sure you've got backups of backups of backups, because that's going to keep you from going insane. Knowing that, oh, I've still got all my data. Nothing's lost. I just have to rebuild everything.
Minor detail.
Minor detail. It just takes time. Oh, I could do this. Right? So.
Right.
But, I think, as far as, being out there on your own, I think it was Robert Frost that said, by working faithfully 8 hours a day, you may eventually get to be the boss and work 12 hours a day. That is so true.
Pretty much sums it up.
That pretty much sums it up. Yeah, my boss is an asshole. So.
Yeah, because it's you.
Very rarely lets me get any real time off. I have to really argue with him.
Tom, I want to jump now to quick answer questions, but they pretty much all jumble together into one answer. And that's, tell us about a game-changing product. What software program are you using daily? And what's your favorite shop tool?
Well,
go for it.
Yeah. I guess what I'm saying is the game-changing product, of course, is the new model Picoscope, the 4425. That's a real industry game changer right there, I'm telling you. Amazing piece of equipment. And software programs, well, QuickBooks, of course, and that sort of thing. But Picoscope, obviously, we're always playing with Picoscope. When they come out with new build, one of our jobs is to break it. And we try to break it. We try to find things that you can do to it that make unexpected things happen or don't work properly. And it's such a complex piece of software that there's no way you can actually do that. So when we put out a new build, we put it on the forums, we say, hey, here's a new build. For those of you, who want to try it and give us your feedback, And so those who are adventurous and want to try a new build, go ahead and do it, and they find things in it that we would never have found. And that all makes the whole process and the software better all the time with less and less bugs. And so we play with that a lot. And then for those who would rather wait until somebody else has vetted the software for them, and, we'll give it a thumbs up, we'll give it a thumbs down, we'll say, uh-oh, this software build's a real stinker. It doesn't work right. And then they can go, okay, I'll wait for the next one, or whatever. So we do have that ongoing discussion. So favorite shop tool? Well, obviously Picoscope.
Okay.
But, that's because that's all we do. It's not like, it's not like that's the be-all, end-all to diagnostics. It certainly isn't. It's just another tool in the toolbox. It's just that we specialize in it. You ask us how to reflash a BMW, and we're going to say, what? How do you do that?
Right.
But because it's not what we do. There's other people that specialize in that stuff, and we're happy to do what we do. But, we have a pretty nice setup now. I built this new facility a few years ago, so we've got a room, we've got classroom space, we've got 2 bays, we've got office space, stock space, and of course our terminals. We have the boom, so you can get leads over the bay without having to trip over them and that sort of thing. Those are very nice to have. A PC-based piece of equipment, you have to deploy it in such a way that it is available. If you leave it in the case under a bench, nobody's ever going to use it. Right? It's got to be out there. Its accessories have to be there at your fingertips. The laptop or computer has to be booted up and ready to go. So it's just a matter of hooking it up and getting what you want.
So what you're talking about there is your classroom setting.
Yeah.
You have the tools there available to use on a vehicle and demonstrate.
Right, yeah. When we do have live classes here every couple months, and of course all our Pico group members can attend those free of charge. We've had people come from as far away as the Netherlands and Australia to attend them, and some local boys too. But yeah, that's we spend the first half of the day, playing with simulated signals, kind of in a lecture demonstration, question and answer, learn about the features, learn strategies for capturing intermittence and that sort of thing. And then the second half of the day, we take those and put them to immediate practice so they stick. Because you don't, you can hear something in a classroom, you can play with it a little bit, but until you've done it yourself, it doesn't stick.
Right.
And so we follow it up immediately with the hands-on, and they leave, with at least a couple of really key concepts for capturing intermittences, which is one of the most important things to be able to do, with a scope. Ways that you can't miss, that you will capture it.
So, Tom, to end the conversation, what do you think the future of automotive diagnostics is? Where does Picoscope play a role versus OEM scan tools? And in the future, are things going to be so technical and so protected by the OEMs that the OEM solution is the only one? Does that hold any water?
Well, that's a very interesting question. There's several different schools of thought on that out there, and that is that one of them is that lab scopes are becoming less and less useful because the OEM tools are getting more and more powerful. And so you can do things with your data and your interactive tests that will negate the use for lab scopes in the future. I completely disagree with that, of course, and not just because I sell Picoscopes, but because we've seen what guys are running into with these newer vehicles and the kind of things that they're doing. And yes, indeed, I have no disagreement. The OEM scan tools are incredible, the kind of stuff that you can do. And they're always going to be, and they always have been for me, your first tool you grab. They're to get an overview, the big picture, what's going on, what are your codes, what are your data, what clues do you see in the data, what kind of interactive tests is the scan tool capable of that can help you zero in a little further. But when it comes to those pinpoint tests, or things that the scan tool doesn't monitor, or things that the designers didn't consider when they built the vehicle, then you're going to need that lab scope. And one of the key things we have also seen a lot of times, and I've always said this in my classes too, is that if you understand the system and you know how it's supposed to work, you can usually anticipate likely ways that it could fail. And you can pursue that with your scan tool, with your scope, and go there. But what you can never anticipate is what somebody did. And, and the engineers can't anticipate every possible natural failure, much less things people do to their cars.
Especially the people that are listening to Do It for a Living. We're all the guys that are making those changes.
Right.
We're not operating in the OEM, just
not
repair
at
it
all.
world.
Yeah, so we've got a lot of tuners in our group, and they want to see things that they can see with a scope, like and measure, like injector latency and things like that, and program that into the table, so they can get that new set of injectors working the way they wanted them to, all that sort of thing. They can do that with the scope. There's all kinds of things you can do with the scope, and one of the things that people don't realize is it's a lot like any other tool. you know, you're going, well, what would I really use that for? You know, what can I? You don't know until you've got one, and then you go, wait a minute, I could do this, right? Is the things that you haven't thought of that open up new techniques to do things that other people might not have been using, or a refinement of somebody else's technique, you know, that's already out there. And we have a lot of that going on our forums all the time. These guys are coming up with stuff that just blows me away.
It's nice. Well, Tom, thanks so much for taking some time. How do we connect with you and Autonerds?
Just go to autonerds.com, or autonerds.com will get you there too, but that's how you do it. And then you can either email us or give us a phone call, you know, and we don't have a phone tree. You think we should have a phone tree? Press 1 for...
No.
No, we don't. Someone will actually answer the phone, a real person. And if you get the message machine, it probably just means both lines are busy at the moment.
But leave a message, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. We'll definitely get back to you, even if it's after hours, you know.
Well, Tom, thanks so much. Really appreciate you taking some time and explaining to us kind of what you're about, what Autonerds is about, and how you can help our listeners. I appreciate it.
Well, thanks a lot. Yeah, I'm really humbled to be included in a group such as this, you know, for these podcasts, and appreciate you having me do this. I've enjoyed it, and I hope everybody got something out of it, and some ideas about how they can do it for a living.
I'm sure they did. You're the man. Thanks, brother.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks for listening to Do It for a Living. You can find out more about this guest, this show, and even details about what we just talked about at our website, doitforaliving.net. Check out the Facebook page at facebook.com/doitforaliving and tell us who you want to hear from. And most importantly, subscribe to the podcast. Click subscribe. Do it now. Seriously. I'll wait while you grab your phone. Open up the podcast app. Tap the subscribe button. When you subscribe, you help us gain momentum and attract more high-level guests. Thanks for listening, and good luck.